Hello students, today we will study about double displacement reactions. Reaction in which there is an exchange of ions between the reactants are called double displacement reactions. In this, two different atoms or group of atoms or ions are exchanged, that is anion negative ion and cations positive ions switch places forming two new compounds. For example, AB plus CD is the reactant. AB will dissociate into A plus and B minus ions. CD will dissociate into C plus and D minus ions. So there is a mutual exchange of ions between the reactants and we will get AD plus BC, two new different products. Double displacement reaction usually takes place in aqueous solution. For example, take 3 ml of sodium sulfate solution in one test tube and mix with barium chloride solution in another test tube. So we will get barium sulfate, which is insoluble solid, that is precipitate. It will separate from the solution and we will get sodium chloride solution. So sodium sulfate will dissociate into Na plus and SO4 2 minus ions. Barium chloride will dissociate into Ba2 plus and Cl minus ions. There is a mutual exchange of ions between the reactants. So we will get barium sulfate solid and sodium chloride solution. So barium sulfate is an insoluble white precipitate. It will separate from the reaction. So any reaction that produces a precipitate which is insoluble solid and separates suddenly from the solution is called a precipitate reaction. So double displacement reactions are generally precipitate reactions also. What happens when the solution of lead 2 nitrate and potassium iodide are mixed? So potassium iodide will dissociate into K plus and I minus ions. Lead nitrate will dissociate into Pb2 plus and NO3 minus ions. So there will be the mutual exchange of ions between the reactants and we will get lead iodide solid and potassium nitrate solution. What is the color of the precipitate formed? So the color of the precipitate, which is insoluble solid, is yellow in color. Name the compound precipitate. The compound precipitate is lead iodide. Write a balanced chemical equation. So here 1 potassium here, 1 iodine in the left hand side and 2 iodine in the right hand side of the reaction. 1 lead, 2 nitrate and 1 nitrate. So we have to balance the iodine and nitrate. So we will put 2 here and 2 here. So 2 Ki plus lead nitrate forms lead iodide and 2 potassium nitrate. So 2K, 2K, 2 iodine here, 2 iodine, 1 lead, 2 nitrate, 2 nitrate. Hence the reaction is balanced chemical reaction. What is the type of the reaction? There is a mutual exchange of ions between the reactants. So the reaction is double displacement reaction. What happens when silver nitrate solution is added to sodium chloride solution? Silver nitrate will dissociate into silver ions and nitrate ions Ag plus and NO3 minus. Sodium chloride will dissociate into Na plus and Cl minus in aqueous solution. So there will be the mutual exchange of ions between the reactants and we will get sodium nitrate and silver chloride solid, that is insoluble solid in the aqueous solution which will precipitate out. So what is the color of the precipitate formed? So the color of the precipitate is white in color. Name the compound precipitate. The compound precipitate is silver chloride. Let's see some more examples. Barium chloride reacts with potassium sulfate and we will get barium sulfate and potassium chloride. So again, barium chloride will dissociate into Ba2 plus and Cl minus ions. Potassium sulfate will dissociate into K plus and SO4 2 minus ions. There will be the mutual exchange of ions between the reactants and we get barium sulfate as solid and potassium chloride in aqueous solution. Potassium bromide reacts with barium iodide and we will get potassium iodide and barium bromide. Same potassium bromide will dissociate into K plus and Br minus ions. Barium will dissociate into Ba2 plus and I minus ions. So here there will be the exchange of ions between the reactants. So we will get potassium iodide in aqueous solution and barium bromide, which is a solid substance, and it will precipitate out from the reaction. Next example, barium chloride in aqueous solution reacts with sulfuric acid. We will get barium sulfate and hydrochloric acid. So BaCl2, it will dissociate into Ba2 plus Cl minus ion and H plus and SO4 2 minus ions. So the exchange of ions between the reactant and we will get barium sulfate solid, which is insoluble in the aqueous solution, and hydrochloric acid. What happens when barium chloride in aqueous solution reacts with aluminium sulfate in aqueous solution? We will get aluminium chloride and barium sulfate. Again, we see barium chloride will dissociate into Ba2 plus and Cl minus ion. Aluminium sulfate will dissociate into Al3 plus and SO4 2 minus ions. So there will be the mutual exchange of ions between the reactants. So we will get aluminium chloride, AlCl3 and barium sulfate as solid, which is insoluble in the aqueous solution and it will precipitate out. Since there is a mutual exchange of ions between the reactants, that is why these type of reactions are known as double displacement reactions. Thank you all.